Hello, everyone. Today, what we're going to do is we are going to review for our midterm test. I am recording this, and what I want you to do is I want you to also use the presentation along with the handout. The handout has 12 questions that I want you to answer. I want you to answer those questions during today's class with the substitute. So, the first thing that we're going to talk about is possibilism. Possibilism is something that we learned in Unit 1. As a reminder, the midterm test is cumulative, so it's everything that we've covered from the beginning of the school year up until now. So, possibilism, as I said, is something that we covered in Unit 1. Possibilism is what humans do in the face of possible defeat. So, for instance, if you look at the image on the bottom right, it's basically a bridge. What are humans going to do? I want you to think about humans hundreds of years ago, before the advent of a bridge. What they decided to do was to build a bridge. They wanted to get to the other side of that river, so they built a bridge. That is considered possibilism. That is, anything is possible as long as humans can think of it. All right. Another thing, humans are in need of electricity. What's a way in which they can get electricity? They build a dam. So these are possible images of what you might see on that test. So I want you to think about that. I want you to keep that in mind. Next, the demographic transition model. The demographic transition model is something that was created in order to kind of help us understand what's happening in different countries or different stages of evolution for countries. So in stage 1 of countries, you have a high birth rate, a high death rate, and the total population is very low. And the reason the total population is very low, even though you have a high birth rate, is the fact that you have a high death rate, which basically means lots of humans are dying. And so the population is going to be very low. The major cause of that is health. Healthcare is, or I should say, people are dying because of diseases. So in stage 2, typically what is happening is you see that the birth rate remains constant as you transition from stage 1 to stage 2. The birth rate remains constant. However, the death rate is starting to decline. The reason the death rate is starting to decline is humans in that particular area or in that country have learned how to beat disease. And so the total population starts to increase because people are living longer. As you transition from stage 2 to stage 3, this is, what I like to do is to remind students that in stage 3, or the end of stage 2 into stage 3, that is where manufacturing is moving in. And manufacturing can only move in when you have a higher population. And that only happens once you have stabilized stage 2. Manufacturing is what enables stage 3 to occur. So as you transition from stage 2 to stage 3, you're starting to see now the death rate is still falling, but now you're starting to see that the birth rate is starting to fall. And even though the birth rate is starting to fall, because of manufacturing, you're now able to create or produce much more food. And that enables more people to be born by by more people. Okay. It sounds weird, but but it's not. More and more people, because more and more people are living and they're living longer, more and more births are occurring. Okay. Now, as I said before, in stage 3, what's happening is the birth rate is falling, the death rate is decreasing because people are living longer. And that means that the total population is increasing. In stage 4, you still see that the birth rate is falling, death rate or the death rate has started to plateau, which basically means it started to even out. The total population has reached its crescendo, it has reached its highest point. And then as you transition into stage 5, the birth rate has dipped even lower. Less and less babies are being born. And they are not being replaced by people who are immigrating into the society. Okay. And so you see a decline in total population. So that's what's happening with the demographic transition model. Next, push and pull factors. Now, push factors is really easy. The things that would make you want to leave your country. And there are several, right? The biggest reason would probably be because of economic issues. You don't have a job, you're not making enough money, you're not able to take care of your family. And so as a result, many people want to leave their country in search of those greater opportunities. But there are other reasons as well. They're environmental. I want you to think about hurricanes and floods and and mudslides, fire. All of those things would make people want to move from one area to another. Those are environmental. An earthquake, it would make people want to move from one place to another. Also, political. If one political party is dominant within your country and they're attacking your group, whatever your group is, your ethnic group, you might want to leave that country for fear of your life. Okay. And then there are pull factors. Pull factors are the things that will make you want to go to another country. And typically, for whatever reason you're leaving your home country, the opposite has to be true for your final destination. In other words, if you are leaving a country that doesn't have a lot of jobs, where you're not able to make a lot of money, you want to move to a country that does have a lot of jobs, where when you have that job, you're going to make a lot of money and you're going to be able to take care of your family. Same with environmental. If you are leaving a country that has a whole lot of earthquakes, you don't want to go to another country that has a whole lot of earthquakes. That's the trauma that you're leaving from your home country to go to your new country. You want to get rid of that, right? So for whatever reason you're leaving, your push factor, the pull factor has got to be the opposite. Okay, keep that in mind. So, religious hearths. A religious hearth is basically the founding place of your religion. So, you notice Christianity, we've gone over this several times. Christianity is located in Israel, specifically Jerusalem. So that's located here in the well, yeah. I don't want to tell you the world regions, but I want you to use this map, right? So you see this map to the left. This is the religious hearths map, and then you see the world regions map here. Now, of course, this is only half of the world, but this is the part of the world that is specific to this map. So pay attention to where these places are on the map and find them here on this map. And that is where the world regions that these religions were founded. Next, we have the Berlin Conference. So the Berlin Conference was basically European powers. They got together. They decided, hey, look, we don't want to have a world war. We don't want to fight over territory in Africa. Africa is for the taking. No one there is going to. They can't fight us. And they have all of these rich natural resources that we want to take advantage of. And so what those European powers did was they got together. They got together in Berlin. Berlin is a city in Germany. And they basically said, hey, look, we're going to carve out Africa and we're going to decide which areas of Africa each of these countries will be responsible for, will colonize, and will basically take their natural resources. Now, I do want to say that the United States was invited to the Berlin Conference, but because of our issues with race, specifically with African slaves, the United States said, nah, we don't want to be part party to this. So the United States did not take part in this, but the United States was offered a seat at the table. So the European powers, they carved up Africa, and this is what happened. Okay. Now you can look at the map here. You can see, for instance, this lime green color. This is French. So those areas of Africa were colonized by the French. And as a result, the people there now speak that language. And I want you to do the same thing. I want you to look based on the color, and you can tell what language they speak. So by looking at this, I see red is Italian. So wherever I see red, that's where the Italians, that's the area of Africa that the Italians colonized. And that is also the language that people speak. So I want you to use that same logic. And on your presentation, you will have another map. You'll have a map of Africa. That map will tell you the names of the countries. So your questions are asking you to list or name the countries and the language that they speak there. So use that map to help you with this. All right. The United Nations Law of the Sea, or I should say the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. So what happened was countries needed to determine who had rights over the sea. Um, and that was basically because different countries had different standards. Some countries said, no, our border extends for 200 miles. And other countries are like, nah, it only extends for 10. And, so whatever. So you have what is considered territorial sea. Like, this belongs to you. It's 100% yours. No one else can do anything with it. You also have an exclusive economic zone. And what that basically means is very similar to the territorial sea. It's just that in terms of defense, you can't claim that area. However, you can claim that area for economic reasons. So, for instance, if you are fishing, only your country can fish in that exclusive economic zone. No other country can fish in that area. Likewise, if you have found, or your country has found, oil or gas in that area of the sea, no other country can claim that oil. Now, then the question is, well, what happens if two countries are closer than the territorial amount that is given? And basically, 200 nautical miles is what's given for this exclusive economic zone. So, in the case of China and Taiwan, that is not their reality. It's a closer division. And so what happens there is it's something called the median law, which basically means you take this half and you take this half, and all of that is your territory, and you can't do anything about it. Okay. So it's basically called the median law. You probably want to pay attention to the median law. It's going to become important. All right, then we also have fertility rates. So when you're dealing with fertility rates, we're talking about the average number of childbirths per woman in childbearing age. So that's your fertility rate. You'll notice that in the 1950s, the average number of births that a woman had was somewhere between 4.5 and 5. Right. And it went up just a little in the 1960s, and you saw that there was a gradual decline. And now it is, we're in our 2020s. So let's say it's somewhere right around about 2 births per woman. It is projected by 2050, roughly 30 years from now, to be about 1.75 births. And by 2100, 1.5 births per woman. Now, these are United States standards. If you look here to the right, you'll see the reasons why birth rates are falling. You'll see that it's because of economic development. In other words, and we've gone over this extensively in class, we've learned that Jobs, just by having jobs, women having the ability to chart their own course, realizing their own potential, they're less likely, less inclined to want to have kids. Also, access to contraception. And what I mean by that is birth control. Now, some of you will reduce that to uh, what's it called? Abortion. But no, the main reason is because of contraception, such as condoms and birth control. Also, parenting is become less and less attractive because of some of the reasons that I've listed above, but there are others. For instance, the cost of daycare, housing. Also, oh well, yeah, I just mentioned that, and also change in social attitudes towards the number of kids that people are having. For instance, when I was young, I remember this vividly. The number of kids that you had a social value to it. Even here in the United States, I remember that. I remember uh, my next door neighbor, who was actually my cousin, he was bragging about the fact that his great grandmother, his great grandmother had what was it, 9 kids, and my grandmother only had 5 kids. And then I quickly said, but most of her kids went to college, and none of you. I'm sorry. But anyway, anxiety over the future. So many people are anxious about their future, and so they don't want to bring a child into the mix when they don't know what their future is going to be. And then also you have improved education, which I just mentioned. The idea that the more educated you are, you're less inclined to have lots of kids. You're more inclined to have a lower number of kids because of your improved education. All right, so let's move. So we have language in the United States. So we do know that the United States is a quote unquote a melting pot. And with that melting pot, what that basically means is that we have lots of different languages that are spoken here in the United States. We know that English is the dominant language here in the United States. I am going to give you this presentation. When I give you this presentation, you will be able to manipulate or change the images that I've given you. And so you'll be able to see the key in greater detail. But based on my knowledge, I know that the yellow represents Spanish. I know that the brown represents Native American. I can make some assumptions that the blue represents French. Okay. And there are other colors in there as well. There are other colors in Texas. It's more than just blue and yellow. We also see green, and there's also a purple. I want you to pay attention to those percentages. Now, we also know why people speak those languages. I mean, we know a little bit about history, about why people speak those particular languages. I want you to use what you know to help you understand what you're looking at as well. Now, again, as I've said, in Texas, you see a lot of yellow. That means that there's a strong Spanish influence in Texas, as well as in New Mexico and Arizona and California. And we see a great deal in Nevada as well. So this is California, Nevada, this is Arizona, this is New Mexico. Now this is Colorado right here. Well, this is Colorado. So yeah. So you see a great deal of the United States speaks Spanish. Now, this is the reason I'm paying attention to this is because it's going to help you answer another question a little bit later when the map that I use doesn't really show this information. So I want you to keep what I'm telling you in mind. All right, so pay attention to this as well. All right, next we have toponyms. So toponyms is basically the idea that we name things based upon our culture or our cultural experience. So if you pay attention to Texas, this is a perhaps like a dark purple color. So we see that this dark purple color is based on other Native American. So what that means is lots of different names are given to places in Texas based on a Native American heritage. And I will take the leap and say that probably the reason for this other is in addition to Native American. Hmm. All right. And then also we see right here for New Mexico, this is Uto Aztecan. All right. So we know that that's Aztec, right? And we know that that's Native American. And we also know what I just told you about in this previous map, right? So keep those things in mind. So toponyms, all right? So we've got that. Now we also have absolute versus relative location. So we should remember the difference between absolute and relative location. For absolute location, there are only two types of ways that you have absolute location. Only two that exist. When you know the coordinates, latitude, longitude, and we also have a street address. So this is the street address for the school. The other type of location is relative location, and that's when you have things that tell you uh, go up the street, turn right, make a left, things like that. Uh, Go down about a mile, things like that. All of that is relative location only because you don't have a specific location. You have approximations of where something is located. And so that is the presentation for today. As a reminder, you can always slow down the video, speed it up, skip, do whatever it is that you need to do to manipulate it. Just make certain that you fill out and complete the review for midterm one form. Fill that out. Make certain you turn that in because it's due. Good luck.